Cool. So chapter 2 begins with this knowledge that I want you to know that I've been praying for you, and for most of you, I've been praying for you by name, that this idea about numbering your days wouldn't just be something that you think it's old people talk, that old people do, that it really would be like, you'd be like, wow. I really have been praying that tonight you'd be like, wow, that's something that I actually learned something that I could use to love Jesus more, and to learn to have to be excited about living on mission for him. And so this whole weekend really has been around about wrapping our brains around and coming around Psalm 90:12. Lord, teach us to number our days. And so tonight we're going to spend a few moments together just kind of reading the first 12 or so verses, and then we're going to finish it tomorrow. But we want, I know you had a chance to read it all this morning, but what we want to do tonight is just ask the Lord to captivate our hearts, so that we'd really be more than just this phrase that kind of is easy to say, Lord, teach us to number our days. No, that he would captivate our hearts, so it'd actually be like helpful. I don't know if you've ever sat, I remember those days sitting in like a math class, and the teacher's writing something on the board, and it doesn't make any sense, right? It's like, you know what, I know I have 30 problems to do here in a few minutes, and that didn't really help me. And I've been praying that tonight, and your discussions in life groups all across this room would help you be a more passionate follower of Jesus, and be a person who can walk the hallways of your schools, and in the places that you live and the places that you go, more passionate about sharing your faith. And so the other night, actually, a friend of mine, one of our former Ablaze students, sent me this video, and I was just like, wow. I can't believe, I was really just stunned at this video, and so I want to show it to you. So take a look at this video.
Hey girls, I need you to clean up those toys. Hey girls, come on inside, it's time for dinner. Hey girls, I need you to eat your dinner.
So that video is about 12 years old. It was from our first D Now. My friend Josh Sullivan sent it to me the other night, and I was literally just, I'll watch it 100 times. I know I'm a dad, and if you didn't catch it, that was me and the two munchkins are Anna and Sarah Grace. They were about 3 and 5, and it was for our first D Now, and it was called, the title, or the theme was, Can You Hear Me Now? And we used that video to kind of try to help promote it and help everybody kind of come around the idea that we were headed after that particular weekend. And what I remember most is I was just sitting there watching the video, like literally clicking play over and over again, and thinking about this weekend and thinking about our time together. I really had this weird moment of nostalgia where I was thinking about the fact that I'm a dad, and that's still crazy to me, because sometimes I still feel like I'm one of you guys, and that my kids are old enough, to one of them who will graduate next year and the other one will enter high school, that's my life right now, right? It's crazy. I still feel like I'm either that guy in that video or like one of you sitting in the chairs, that life passes you by really, really quickly. And you see, as we've been praying through and kind of trying to come around this anchor prayer of Moses, when he says, Lord, teach us to number our days, my fear is that you will think it's something that old people will do. You might think it's something that your grandparents did when they watched videos when you were little, and they go, oh, can't you remember when you were like this? And they tell a story, and you're like, no, I was 3. I don't remember that at all, right? And that you would think that this is something that is just useful for people who are getting older in life, and they're afraid that life is slipping by. Because what Moses is after, and I believe what God is after, and why this could really be helpful to you tonight, and why it could really change the way that you live this thing called the Christian life, is that Moses isn't after us looking backwards, right? It's not about flipping through a photograph book and going, oh, do you remember when I was 3? No, he wants us to look forward. Lord, teach us to number our days. Okay, and so I thought it might be interesting if we just did that for a second. And I did some math this weekend, this past week in preparation for this, that might just help us wrap our brains around forward thinking. Lord, teach us to number our days. And I know we have just a few seniors in the room. Raise your hand if you're a senior. Cool. We got like 4 or 5, 6. Hey, I don't know if you guys have realized this. I bet you have, but I just kind of had to pick one. So I picked Reagan High School's graduation date. I live close to Reagan. If you go to Reagan, do you realize you have 106 days left in high school? If you're a senior tonight, that's it. And once you walk across that stage, you won't be in high school anymore. There's only 106 days left. Where are the juniors? Where are you guys at? Raise your hand, juniors. Juniors, you guys have a little longer. Just kind of picking one of the graduation dates of the schools that we attend, including summer and including holidays. You guys have 471 days left until you are no longer a high school student. Sophomores, where are you guys at? All right, I think you get in the picture. You guys have 837 days left until you are no longer a high school student. I know it just started for you freshmen, but where are all the freshmen? Raise your hand if you're a freshman. Freshmen, you guys have 1,202 days left in high school. So everybody else, give these guys a round of applause. They've worked hard to get to this place. And that's not actually very long. It'll pass by pretty fast. But middle school students, I'm going to include you guys. 8th graders, where are you guys at? I know you're not there yet, but you have 1,567 days until you walk the stage. If you pass all your classes, you'll walk the stage in 1,567 days, and you will no longer be a high school student. 7th graders, where are you guys at? Raise your hand, 7th graders. Cool, glad I can see you guys. You guys have 1,932 days left until you graduate from high school. And finally, last but certainly not least, I know you're new to the middle school party, but 6th graders, where are you guys at? 6th graders? Yes, loud and proud. 6th graders, you have 2,146 days left until you graduate from high school. But I didn't actually stop there. It was kind of interesting to me what it felt like to number our days. And so let's just kind of skip the college years and jump to the next great stage in life. And the one that I came up with was marriage. And this is not scientific, right? I don't know exactly the day that you're going to get married, and that's not what I'm saying. But on average, most Americans get married between the ages of 26 and 29. So generally, if you kind of just follow out some simple math, you can come to the amount of time that it might be for a 6th grader before he or she gets married. And you know what that is? It's 4,854 days until you might have a husband or wife. For 7th graders, it's 4,489 days. For 8th graders, it's 4,124 days. For 9th graders, it's 3,759 days. For 10th graders, it's 3,393 days. And finally, for these last 2 grades, you guys might want to write this down. You're a little closer. For 11th graders, it's 3,028 days. So 3028, 3,028 days. And seniors, you guys, until you possibly might have a ring on your finger and you say the words, I do, you guys have about 2,663 days. Kind of takes on a whole new meaning when you begin to number your days. But I actually want to show you something. You know those calendars that you have that you can kind of rip away, or maybe you put an X over it to mark the days? I just kind of want to show you what 2,663 X's looks like, so that you could get a sense of what it means to number your days. You can't really see it well, but the one up there, that represents today, and it's almost over, and it's yellow. And for you guys seniors, that red X is the day that you're going to lift the veil and kiss a beautiful bride, or allow the veil to be lifted, and someone's going to kiss you, and you will be married. That's it, the number of days. Just start counting them. But you know what the next significant time in your life? And this one was big for me. It would be the day that you have children. okay? And I can remember, it was awesome to get married, and that one was an easy, really kind of this milestone that I really embraced. But I can remember a couple of days before Anna was born thinking, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be responsible for another living human being. And that's kind of scary, right, Drew? And so here's the deal. On average, most Americans, they get married between 28 and 30. So with just a little bit of, again, some simple math, I'm not saying this is the exact day that it's going to happen, but it's going to be close. You guys might want to write this down. The days until you are a parent, if you're a senior in the room, 4,124 days, right? Until you might have somebody calling you mommy or daddy. 11th graders, 4,489 days. 10th graders, 4,854 days. 9th graders, 5,220 days. 7th graders, 5,950 days. 6th graders, 6,315 days. 8th graders, I didn't leave you out. You guys have 5,585 days. Check out how many X's that is, right? Right now, it's too many to count. But in one way, it's not very many. Yes, I'm sure, because I counted every one of them. Okay, but here's the deal. There's one more stage of life that I want to skip over a lot of other things, and one more stage of life that I want to take you to, and that's retirement. Most Americans, they retire between the ages of 63 and 65. And again, not exactly, but just with some simple math, we might get close. If you're a sixth grader, you haven't even started thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, right? But by the time you get what some people call the close of life, it's only going to be 18,734 days. Seventh graders, 18,369 days. Eighth graders, 18,003 days. Ninth graders, you're at the line. You mark it, you come into the 17,000s. You guys have 17,638 days until you're like sitting on a beach drinking a Coke. 10th graders, you have 17,273 days. 11th graders, 16,908 days. And 12th graders, it's 16,542 days. 11th graders, check this out. That's that many X's. And you're just going to be pulling them down one at a time. But as I was sitting there was really one last one that I was just curious. And I won't do this for everybody because it's kind of scary or weird, but the average white American male lives to be 76 years old. And so if I were to die on my 76th birthday, I have 12,328 days left on this earth. And that's this many X's. Kind of feels weird to number your days, right? Feels really weird. And so if we're going to wrap our brains around this prayer that Moses is praying and have it have some sense of fuel in our hearts to help us love Jesus more and be more about the things that he wants us to be about here on this earth, and to use it to actually cause us to grow closer to him, and to use it to help us share our faith with our friends, and to be better children, and more obedient to our parents, and better husbands and wives, because one day that day is coming, and to be better moms and dads, because one day that's coming for you. If we're going to really do that, then let's just take a look at what Moses has to say in these first 12 verses in Psalms 90. And Moses lived to be 120. And so that's kind of double the amount of X's that most of us would actually have. And so if I were you, I'd be paying close attention. And so hopefully you remember some of these things from when you read it this morning, but I want you to be looking for two specific big ideas in these first 11 verses. They're kind of grouped together. So let's read it together, starting in Psalms 90 verse 1. Moses said, "Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations." So say that with me, dwelling place. Say the word generations. Then verse 2, "Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever had been formed on the earth, and the world had ever been formed, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God." So check this out. Everything that has ever been made was made by God. Everything that will ever exist will have come into being because God had allowed it to come into being. And this one might blow your mind, is that what Moses is reminding himself when he's speaking into his prayer, maybe so somebody could hear it, but most importantly so he could hear it, is that God has no beginning and he has no end. There wasn't somebody that spoke God into existence. And so when we look at the things that are created, when I look at my hand, when I look at a tree, I'm supposed to have some sense of amazement because it reminds me that thing has a beginning and an end. You have a beginning and an end. I have a beginning and an end, but God has no beginning and no end. Then verse 3, he says, you return man to dust and say, return, O child of man. Look at your neighbor and say, hey, you're made out of dust. That's what God used to form us into being. Check out verse 4. For 1,000 years in your sight, O God, are but a yesterday when it is past, or a watch in the night. Turn to the person on your other side and say, God's not limited by time. Verse 5. Check this out. Here's why we know that. Verse 5, Moses says, you sweep away the days as like a flood. They are like a dream. They're like grass that is renewed in the morning. Verse 6, last one. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. And in the evening it fades and it withers. You see, the Psalms, they're poetry. And so I don't know if this resonates with you, but I can remember being in my junior English class and reading poems, because that's what we did. We just read poem after poem after poem, and I can remember sometimes going, how do I know that says that? Or I can be confused. You're telling me it says this, but I don't see those words anywhere in there. And so there's this phrase, some things get lost in translation. And I don't know if that happens to you sometimes when you read the Psalms. Moses is making some foundational statements that are really, really important to our faith. They're really, really important to this thing that we're going to get from God when he gives us a heart of wisdom. But we miss them because we're reading around some things about being made out of dust and mountains and all these things. And you see, when the Bible talks about wisdom, what it's generally meaning is this idea that we are to be learners, that we're actually even supposed to be teachers. And the primary person that we teach is ourselves. And the thing that we want to teach, the thing that we want to learn is how to have hope in God, how to trust him more. In every situation that I encounter, I want to be going, God, how are you teaching me to trust you more? How are you teaching me to find my hope in you and you alone? And that's why Moses uses these first 7 verses of his prayer to just describe the greatness and the awesomeness of God. Because I kind of think he's talking to himself and reminding his heart, maybe at this moment when he could have been a little sad or a little dejected or a little confused. And he's saying, oh, wait, Moses, remember, God's really, really big. God's really, really great. God's really, really awesome. You know, I was thinking this week about some different things that I could bring into the room, some really, really small things and some really, really big things to try to illustrate the fact that what Moses is trying to illustrate for us is that God's big and we're small. And you see, there's not really something that I could bring into the room that is small enough that you could actually see and put it next to something that is big enough that I could actually fit in this room so that you would get the picture, right? Because God's really, really big and we're really, really small. And you see, not a lot of people want to hear that message. We want to be people who always get a trophy, or people who always get smiled at, or people who are always thought well of. But Moses is saying, when you really understand how big God is and how great God is, sometimes you feel small. I remember when I was in the 9th grade, or actually it was the summer in between my 8th grade year and my 9th grade year, and I wanted to play freshman football. And so I went to my dad and said, Dad, I know that I need to start working out. You know, and at least for us in middle school football, there was no weights. You didn't do that. You just went outside and practiced every day. But I knew going into freshman football that we would go into the weight room. And I knew I didn't lift very much. And so I went to my dad and asked him for a bench press. And so we went to a couple of garage sales and we found this bench press and we brought it back to the house. And I was out in the garage one day and I was lifting these weights. And my dad, who was actually shorter than all of his sons, he's just really about this tall. He comes out in the garage, he's like, that's pretty good, son. He's like, hey, get up for a second. So I get up and I'm thinking, Dad, you're old. Just like you think about your parents sometimes, you're old. What are you gonna do? He's like, hey, Chris, Why don't you put every weight that you have out here in the garage on the bar right now? So I said, oh, sure. I put every weight on the bar, all right? And then he's like, how many times do you think I could do that? I'm like, Dad, you can't do that. Maybe once, right? And I was used to like the struggling, because that's where I was, just struggling to get some of that weight up. I was used to that. I'm thinking, maybe at best, Dad, you could just struggle to get it up there once. He sits down on that bench press and he does it 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he starts mocking me. You want me to keep going? 5, 6, 7, and he just keeps on going. And you know, I realized that day is that my dad is a whole lot stronger than me, right? There's a difference between boy strength and man strength. Some of you will come to know that one day. And here's the deal. What was cemented into my mind that day is that my dad was stronger than me. And what needs to be cemented into your mind tonight, if you don't already know it, is that the God who created you, the God who spoke you into being, the God who died for your sins, is that he is a great and glorious God. And if you are going to have a heart of wisdom, you must be rooted, it must be founded in this idea that you love the fact that God is great and that you are small. And when I say that, it's not an insult. It doesn't mean that you're insignificant. We'll see that again and again, over and over through the Bible. But if I'm gonna come to a place where I'm secure in finding hope and in having this wisdom that God wants to give me, it starts with understanding, hey God, you're great and glorious. And I'm a person, like Moses said, who's just gonna live a few days here on this earth. Oh, by the way, check it out. I'm glad I'm going to heaven and going to get to spend eternity with you. But if I put my life up to yours, there's actually no way to measure it. And you see, the thing that I'm desperate for you to understand tonight is that we have the incredible capacity to make ourselves the center of everything that happens here on this earth. You know, the summer between, or actually my 7th grade year, I decided that I wanted to run for student council. And so it was at the end of my 7th grade year. And so we did everything, made the posters, signed up, made the speech over the intercom, all the things that maybe you guys still do today. Filled out the ballots, asked people to, or filled out the posters and the little cards that you pass out to people, asked people to vote for me, and all those kinds of things. And it got to the end of that week, and I actually forgot something really, really important. I was one of those kids that went to church just about every Wednesday and every Sunday, and so I was confident that this is something that God wanted me to do. I was confident that it's something that he wanted to give me. He wanted to make me one of the members of the 8th grade student council. And so then I did all of those things. And it got to the end of the week, and I forgot to also tell you, I was getting up each morning and having my quiet time. That's what we call when you read the Bible in the morning, and making sure that I was praying. I was doing everything that I knew good Christians are supposed to do. Then it came Friday for the election and the results to be announced that afternoon. And as it came time for me to hear the results, I found out I didn't win. I wasn't elected. I can remember being so angry at God. Why didn't you allow this? Why didn't you give this to me? Why didn't you make this happen for me? Angry at myself, felt rejected. And I got so angry and mad that when the bell rang, the only thing I could think to do was to run out the door and start running home, right? But there's only one problem with that. I live like 8 miles from the school. I rode the bus every day to school and on the way on home every day. And so I wasn't very far down the street until I realized, crap, I missed my bus. I'm gonna have to walk all the way home. And 8 miles is pretty far for an 8th grader to walk. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I got home, I shared this story with my mom and dad and all these different things. And like maybe it's happened for you when you've encountered one of those times in your life, the old people that come around, Chris, there's probably a lesson that you needed to learn from this and all these different things. And again, there's just a few problems with that, is that I just felt rejected and that I didn't really care whatever it is that God wanted me to learn in that moment. And you see, when you're there, you feel incredibly small, right? But it's also there that the greatness in a great and glorious big God can give you strength and hope. Because you see, it's only in those moments when we learn to say, you know what, I'm not getting out of life what I want to get out of life right now. I don't know if you're a 6th grader in the room or if you're a 12th grader in the room and you're looking at it and you're like, I really don't like my life. That's when you can know that you're learning the lesson of what it means to be small. But just wait, because God's ready to show you how big he is. And that doesn't mean that you're going to win the student council election. It does mean that get ready to see something clearly with your eyes for the very first time, and it's going to be awesome. And so how you prepare your heart for that moment to see God big and be okay with seeing yourself small is, guys, you got to learn to read the Bible a whole lot. You got to learn to love God's word. It's not a textbook. It's not an assignment. You got to learn to separate those things. And I know that that's the way it feels like because you get assignment after assignment after assignment at school. And how do I separate those two? And here's the truth. There's nothing that I can say to you right now that will motivate you. There's nothing that I can do to help you. What I can do is just pray that you would learn to have a love for God's word. If you're in one of those moments where you feel like you're having a crappy week, a terrible life, I just want you to just keep on going in the book of Psalms because it's a prayer of Moses right now. But if we turn a couple of pages in either direction, we'll come smack dab in the middle of David's life. And although he didn't walk the schools of a hallway, although he didn't sit in a college class, guess what? His life didn't turn out always like he wanted it to. Yes, he was the king of all Israel, but there you see over and over again where God brings him to a place and when he realizes that he is small and God is great and he is just happy about it. And so I'm praying that one of the things that happens to you at Winter Retreat this weekend is that you learn to have a love for God's word. It's breath. The Bible tells us it's his breath on a page. It's his invitation to you. 5 more verses and then we'll be done. Check out in verse 7, Moses is kind of turning the corner like we like to do sometimes, and he's going to start talking about a new subject. And I think these next 5 verses, they're the toughest verses. Moses said, for we, all of us human beings, were brought to an end by God's anger. We're brought to an end by God's wrath we are dismayed. Everybody turn to the person on your left and say, God's anger. Turn to the person on your right and say, God's wrath. You see, these aren't things that we talk about in church a lot. We kind of get scared to talk about them. And I don't want you to leave tonight and get ready to go to bed tonight being like, oh wait, am I supposed to be scared of God? Like scary movies scared? What does it mean to have the fear of the Lord? So let's keep reading to see how Moses clues us in on what the fear of the Lord is. And he jumps right in verse 8. Check it out. For you, God, you have set our iniquities before you and our secret sins in the light of your presence. If you want to understand some things, write this down. Iniquities, they're like our open public sins. They're the sins that everybody knows about. If I had told you that this weekend, given the theme, that the Stranger Things boys were going to show up at our 80s party tonight, and when they didn't show up, you would look at me and you would say, you did not tell the truth, and my sin would be public. That's an iniquity. But Moses doesn't stop there. He gives us hope. He said, God, not only is our iniquity the focus point of your anger, but so is our secret sins, the things that we do that we think nobody knows about. You see, those two things, they're key to understanding what the Bible really wants you, whether you're 12, 18, or 42, to understand about God's wrath and about God's anger. Check out verse 9. Moses says this, for all of our days, they pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like the sigh. So again, he's focusing on the greatness of God. And remember when we put those X's up there to represent days? Moses is saying that large numbers of days, they just pass away like God takes a breath. Look at your neighbor and just take a deep breath. It's like God's sitting on his throne going, whoop, whoop, there's 10,000 years just gone, just like that, right? That's how big and great God is. Then check out verse 10. Here's what Moses said. The years of our life, he starts to number the days. They're 70, or even by reason of strength, they're 80. And their span is but toil and trouble. and they are soon gone away. We fly away. Anybody honest enough in the room right now just to raise your hand and say, you know what, I feel a lot like Moses. My life right now is just nothing but trouble. Anybody there? Like this year has just been one of the worst years of your life, and it just feels like nothing but trouble, right? Have hope, because that's where Moses is saying, you know what, I feel like the span of my life is toil and trouble. Then check out verse 11. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So I just want you to stop and think about that. If you're getting distracted a little bit right now, focus right here. We're almost done. I want you to think about the fact and try to see how you could answer this question. Write it down. Think about it. Ponder it. Come face to face with this idea. Do I fear God? Do you fear God? It's okay right now in this moment. I hope maybe most of us are there. You know what? I don't quite understand. I know I'm not supposed to be scary movie afraid of God. I know I'm not supposed to be like 3-year-old, what's underneath my bed, afraid of God. That's not what this fear means. And so it's okay if you're going and you're camping out in the place of, I don't quite know what you mean, Chris. I can't quite answer that question yet. But you see, you know what, I think there's some other people that you'd have to, if you were honest, say, I know I'm supposed to, but I don't. I know I'm supposed to, Chris, but I don't. And I've been there where you're at. And here's how you know you're there. You know you're supposed to, but you don't, is when you love sin. And you give wholehearted approval to the way you live your life to that sin, right? When you're like, you know what? I know I'm not supposed to do this, and I really am thankful that I didn't get caught last week, but I'm going head on in, and I'm going to do it anyway, right now. I know it's in the Bible. It's like, you know, maybe the 3rd or 4th commandment, wherever it's at. It's in Ephesians. It's in Proverbs. Somewhere I know what I'm about to do, I'm not supposed to do, but I'm going and doing it anyway. If that's you, you can't say that you have a biblical fear of God. I've been there too. And you know, there's some other people who in the room who can't say that they have a biblical fear of God if you only just feel bad about your sin, right? Well, I know I'm going to feel bad after I do this, but I'm kind of okay with that, right? Then if you're there, you don't have a biblical fear of what it means, or a biblical understanding of what it means to have a fear of the Lord. And maybe you're feeling bad, it's gonna make you feel creepy on the other side, but it's not enough to make you stop. I'm not speaking for everybody in the room, but I think probably most of us fall into one of these two categories. You know what? I've just been kind of come apathetic about my sin. When I get to that place, I have no biblical understanding of what it means to fear the Lord. You know, I get it. Just like the worst small stuff and God's big stuff, people don't like to talk about the fear of the Lord. And just like the first 7 verses were foundational to creating wisdom and saying God is great, these 5 verses, they're foundational to understanding that God is going to do something mighty for you when you desire, when you have this insane desire to go, you know what? I want to be marked by a fear of the Lord. I want to be marked by a fear of the Lord. What do I mean by that? I know Valentine's Day was so like Wednesday, but Valentine's Day in my house is not the most important day in February. The most important day, at least for me in February, I love my 2 daughters, but the most important day for me in February is actually February 13th. Because 20 years ago to this February 13th, I asked the most beautiful woman in the world to marry me. Right? And I did it on purpose because it's easy to ask somebody to marry you on, and that year it was Saturday, February 14th. But it's really, really awesome to ask somebody to marry you on Friday the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. And I did a lot of thinking that week, right? I'm thinking, what am I going to say to her? What am I going to say? Because, there's like this epic battle that goes on with people who are getting married. I got to like one up the guy that just asked his beautiful bride-to-be to marry him. So I'm trying to think about all these things that I want to do to make this an epic night. And I don't know if you guys know this. Most of you aren't in this category, but I was really, really poor. And it's hard to have this epic like proposal night when you have like $5 in the bank. I've used all the money to buy the ring. And so I'm trying to think of all these things that I want to do, because here's what I wanted to do. What I wanted more than anything is I wanted to leave a mark on Anne-Marie. A mark that said that if she ever came in, if we ever encountered trouble, she could know for sure that she wasn't getting rid of me. That she could know for sure that I love her. Whatever it is that I was going to say when I got down on that knee, I wanted her to be able to always remember it. And you see, that's what we mean when we say, has a burning desire in your heart been created, that you say, God, I want to be marked by a fear of the Lord. I want to have an unshakable memory that says, God, I know that I have a heart of wisdom because I know that I fear you. And before I go too much further, and you're like going home saying, you know what, Mom? Chris said the only way to have a heart of wisdom, you know what, Dad? Chris said the only way to have a heart of wisdom is that I'm supposed to be scared or afraid of God. And if that's where you're at, that's not what I'm saying. You see, a life that's been marked by a biblical fear of the Lord understands this, that my secret sins, they've been forgiven. That Jesus had to die on the cross so that the things that I did, that literally maybe nobody on this earth will ever know that I did them, they've been forgiven. And so a life that's been marked by the fear of the Lord, it's able to go, whew, thank you, Jesus. And it's okay to do that. Wow. Jesus, I can't believe I made it through that week and nobody knows that I did that. It's okay to be there. You just can't stay there. So that's the first place, is you go, wow, Jesus, thank you that my secret sins are forgiven. But a life that's been marked by a fear of God also knows that my open sins, they're forgiven too. My iniquities, the things that I've done that really kind of everybody knows about. Maybe not everybody, but my parents and people that are close to me, they know that I did them. They know that I cheated on that test. They know, and you see, a life that does that knows, you know what? I've been forgiven. And you know what? God made a way. So I'm going, wow. Not only did you cover me for the secret sins, God, but you made a way so that I don't have to stay a liar. I don't have to stay a cheater. I don't have to be a person that always looks at pornography. I don't have to stay at those places. Yes, I did get caught. Yes, somebody did find out, but I don't have to stay that person. That's a person whose life has been marked by the fear of the Lord. My junior year in college, I was taking my final semester of Hebrew. And really, just to be honest with you, I was done. I didn't want to take any more Hebrew class. I'd actually made pretty good grades up until this point. It's the end of the summer, or it's in May. It's the end of the school year. I'm just ready to go home and be done with school. And Hebrew is actually the last final that I was supposed to take that semester. Can really just still remember all these things very, very clearly. And I'm hanging out with my roommates that night in our apartment, and I know I need to study, but I'm like, not doing it. I would rather hang out with you guys, right? Wasn't I an awesome friend? They don't have any more tests. They're just going to hang out in the living room. And I'm like, I'm all in with you guys. Forget Hebrew. I'm hanging out with you guys. We won't see each other for a couple of months, so we're just going to hang out that evening. And I go to the test. I'm thinking, you know what? I had like a solid high B in the class. And so how bad can this be? I don't know if you've ever been there, but I looked at a test, and I don't think I can answer a single thing on that deal, on that piece of paper. But to make it worse, Dr. Kennedy, he said, hey, guys, we're also going to do an oral presentation right here where you're going to open your Hebrew Bible and you're just going to read it both in Hebrew and then tell us what it is in English, right? And I see some other people around the room freaking out, but no one's freaking out like I'm freaking out on the inside because I don't think I got a single thing right on this piece of paper, and I know I'm not going to do well here because he kind of told us, kind of hinted at to be ready for that, but I didn't read the passage. And so I bombed that test like I've never bombed a test before. And I go home and pack up my stuff and I go back to read the grades and I see, I think it was like a 22 or something like that, really bad. But I'm like, well, at least with my other grades, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna make a D, but D's get degrees, and so I'm going strong, and I'm fine with it, right? And I get home, and I'm into the summer, was working at a camp and doing all these other things, and I get my report card. They actually mailed the report cards back then. I get my report card, and I have failed Hebrew. I'm like, how did I fail Hebrew? And I call up Dr. Kennedy, and I'm talking with him on the phone, and I'm telling him, hey, Dr. Kennedy, I'm a little confused. I know I didn't do too well on the test, but I don't think I got an F in your class. And he's like, oh, yeah, you didn't read the syllabus? Your finals doubled. And so not only did I get a 22 once, I got a 22 twice, right? And you don't really recover in a college class from two 22s. It equals 44, but it's not really good, right? And so I'm sitting there just devastated all summer long. So I failed Hebrew. Go back for my senior year, and I'm talking to some people, and I had gotten the opportunity to serve on this group that was really cool to be able to be a part of. But the guy that was the leader, the faculty advisor for the group, comes to me and says, Chris, I'm sorry, you can't serve because you're with this F. You don't have enough qualifying hours. You had to be a senior. And so I'm distraught about that. And he's like, but he tells me, there's one thing you can't do. Go back to Dr. Kennedy and see if he'll change your grade. I'm like, I've been told forever that professors don't do that, right? And so, but I really wanted to serve on this team, and so I go back to Dr. Kennedy. I make an appointment to see him, and I tell him, and I'm trying to think of all the stories that I know maybe some of you have been there, right? I ate some bad fish that night, Dr. Kennedy. I don't know what was up. Just trying to create some excuse. And then I thought, you know what? The Bible tells me the truth will set you free. So I just walked into his class, and I just began to tell him, I messed up. I'm a senior in college at this point. And I kid you not, I'm sitting there in his chair, and my hands kind of begin to shake, and I'm a senior in college, and I just begin to bawl like a fourth grader that is in trouble in the principal's office. I just began to tell him, I messed up, and I need some grace. And I see this man open his drawer, pull out a book, open it up, and get a pencil out and start to write some things down. Then he hands me this slip. He says, take it to the registrar. Chris, I'm going to give you a B+. He didn't get, I should have got a D, and he didn't go D, he didn't go C, he went all the way to B+. And that's kind of what my average was up to that point, and he just begins to tell me some other things. And you see, what happens when your life has been marked by the fear of the Lord is you realize that every day that I'm living and breathing, I don't get what I deserve. Let me say that so it'll sink in for you. Every day that I'm walking the face of this earth, I don't get what I deserve. Because I'm a sinful human being. That if God in his justice and in his mercy, or in his wrath, had every right just to wipe me off the face of this earth. But every day that I walk this face of this earth, I'm not getting what I deserve. And so when I come across a situation and I look and I see, God, you've got a chance, you've got an opportunity here to show people through my life that you're big and I'm small, that you're great, and that people can trust you and find their hope in you, that I run to that. If that means telling people about my sin, then I'm doing it. That means telling people that I love them, that I'm doing that. Whatever it means, that's what it looks like to have a life that's marked by the fear of the Lord. And my greatest fear is that you'll leave this room thinking that you have to be afraid of God. But if your life has been marked by that fear, if your life is beginning to understand these verses, then what you're really going to see is that it creates hope in your heart. And how we see that is in the anchor verse of Moses' prayer, and we're going to read it and then be done. So then Moses says, After he's gone through the greatness of God, and then he's gone through what it means to fear the Lord, he says, God, teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. You know, I was sitting praying for us today, just looking at that verse and just asking the Lord, God, how do I kind of take these things? Because remember, I started with this idea that I wanted it to be helpful to you. How do I take these things? I know it hopefully can be inspiring to know that God's great. And it can be convicting to know that I probably don't fear the Lord the way that I need to. Maybe tonight I'm going to get some things right as I talk it out in life group. But how can we come to some place of landing when with this idea, Lord, teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. I think the most important words in the verse are really the first three. So teach us. And I was just sitting there crying out to God, God, I need your help. I need your help. I love these guys so much. And I don't know how to bring this to a place that will be helpful to them. And then it hit me. Lord, the cry has to be, Lord, teach us. And I don't know what you're facing. I do know that the halls you walk on a daily basis, they're tougher than the halls that I walked. I was blessed to have parents that stayed married. They're still married today. I know some of you face some things in your homes that I never faced. But it simply comes to this. Is there a cry in your heart, Lord, teach me? I don't really know what that whole bigness thing about God and the greatness thing about God is, but I have a sense, Lord, that there's something you need to teach me there. Or maybe when we talked about fear in the Lord at least, you're like, you know what? There's something, Lord, I need you to teach me there. Because I know where I'm at right now tonight is I'm kind of okay with my sin. And I see that I don't need to be there. Lord, teach me. And so in a few minutes, that's what we're going to do. Is just cry out to God. Whatever need that you brought to Winter Retreat tonight, just cry out to God, God, teach me. Do something in my life tonight. So I was just asking the Lord that over and over again. I jumped down a few verses. In verse 14, I didn't even have time to make a slide so you could see it. So just, if you have a Bible, read it with me. I'll read it out. But in 14, Moses said, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all of our days. Say that word, satisfy. Say it better, satisfy. You see, the truth is, I think the right place to end tonight is that a life that's in awe of God. It's like, man, God is great. I'm small. A life that's in awe of God. And a life that's marked by the fear of the Lord. Those two things come together when we can say we're satisfied in God alone. I hope you understand that. A life that is in awe of God's greatness and like Moses was and how awesome he is, and a life that's been marked by the fear of the Lord, that you see it when they come together and you can go, you know what, I'm satisfied. God, I might be the only one in my class that doesn't have a boyfriend or doesn't have a girlfriend, but I'm satisfied. You know what, God, I didn't make the team, but I'm satisfied because I know you have something for me here. You know, God, I really would prefer you to have not let my mom and dad get a divorce, but somehow I'm going to know that you're going to do something in my life right now, and I'm going to be satisfied. You know what, God, I would really prefer not to look this way on the outside, but I'm going to cry out to you every day, and you're going to do something on the inside of me, and I'm going to learn to be satisfied. You know, God, I would prefer not to look up at the test scores each and every day and see my name towards the end of the bottom. But I know You've got something for me, and you're going to teach me to be satisfied. You see, that's how you begin to see the bigness of God, the greatness of God, and a life marked by the fear of the Lord come together, and power is displayed for your friends. If you become a generation that just says, Lord, I'm satisfied. I was in the line at the HEB the other day, and I was thinking about the 80s things that we're kind of doing this weekend, and was getting ready to check out. I saw these up on the register. You know, they were open, and you could buy the single packages. This one comes from Box, and I don't know if you know what this is. It's a Star Crunch. There's something awesome about chocolate and Rice Krispies. It's really, really good, right? And I had one of those number my days backwards, nostalgic moments that you guys roll your eyes at your parents. Because I used to eat these like in the 4th and 5th grade. They cost $0.25. And it was awesome when my mom or dad would give me an extra quarter, and I could buy one and eat one. And it was like the highlight of my day to get to be able to eat a Star Crunch. It was really, really cool. But you know what's the worst part of a Star Crunch? Is there's never enough. I don't know if you like chocolate and Rice Krispies like I do. You get to the end and you're like, I wish I had another one, right? It'd be awesome if I had another one. And then if you're a big guy like me, you want another one and another one and another one. And you see, it's just too small. It's not enough. And so I had this great idea that I was gonna bring everybody a Star Crunch, and this great idea to help you see, you know what, life goes by really, really fast. Because I was in 5th grade, buying Star Crunches, and just hoping that tomorrow I could have another 25 cents, and I could have another 25 cents, another 25 cents to get some more Star Crunches. But, you know, that doesn't help us land tonight, does it? But what does help us land tonight is the knowledge that in a few moments when we come back into the room, I didn't just bring 2 Star Crunches. I brought a lot of Star Crunches, okay? I brought enough Star Crunches for everybody who wants a Star Crunch to have a Star Crunch tonight. And you see, what we're getting ready to do in a minute as we worship the Lord is to go, God, you're enough. You're enough. And not only are you enough, you bring enough for everybody in the room right now. So whatever your issue is, whatever your struggle is, God, you're enough. And so as Grant and the guys lead us in these next few seasons, I don't know what brought you to Winter Retreat, but God is enough. And so if the struggle is somewhere in that place of learning that the greatness of God is victorious and is enough for you in whatever you're facing, then you need to move out to one of the aisles where one of the life group leaders or one of the college students will be, and you just need to ask somebody to pray for you. If you're landing in that place tonight where the fear of the Lord is just something that you see in the Bible and you don't know how it translates to you running from sin and running to righteousness, then you have to step into the enough right now and say, God, I'm trusting you. So that's how you know he's enough, is you see the person, your life group leader, that other person, and you go, you know what? It's gonna be a scary walk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. It's gonna be really, really scary, but I'm gonna go because I wanna know that he's enough tonight. And maybe that means you come find a place up here. And you know what we're gonna do tonight? I didn't ask for permission, but I'm in charge, so I'm just gonna do it. No one comes here tonight just to come sing. You come here tonight if you need to do business with God. And you're at that secret sin place, and you just need to come lay something at the feet of Jesus tonight. You just need to come and say, God, I need to know tonight, I'm desperate to know tonight that you're enough. So I'm coming to you, I'm bringing whatever it is that's my need, and I'm coming and I'm bringing it to you.